Hi everyone, it's Brianna and welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf. So it is June, summer has begun, the sun is shining, and I am excited to get into some summer reads. I don't know about you. So today I'm going to be recommending some books that I think are perfect to read in the summertime. My first recommendation is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. And yes, I'm recommending a horror book for the summer because this really is like, to me, the epitome of like the slasher summer kind of vibe, even though it's not a slasher. But if y'all know what I'm talking about, if you've been like watching TikToks recently, everyone is loving like that kind of like summer camp vibe, or like even carnival themed like horror summer vibe. And I am so here for that. I love watching horror movies in the summer and I love reading horror in the summer as well. And I think that this is the perfect one because it really gives off that kind of like nostalgic 80s like high school horror movie. Summer is the perfect time to read that kind of thing in my opinion. So in this book, we're following two best friends, Abby and Gretchen, and they go skinny dipping together. And afterwards, Gretchen starts to act really weird, and Abby is like not quite sure what's going on, if she's just like kind of going through some different things in her life or what's up. And eventually she starts to suspect that Gretchen is actually possessed. And things heat up from there. Gretchen's actions are getting like more and more unstable. And it's quite spooky, it's quite fun. It's honestly like just the most fun summer horror read in my opinion. Then for a weird girl summer book, if you are into weird girl lit, I have Chlorine by Jade Song. I loved this book when I read it. I'm definitely gonna need to reread it soon. This is basically about a girl named Ren who is a swimmer and she is obsessed with swimming. Swimming is like her life, and she also really wants to be a mermaid and she wishes she was a mermaid, and she is just going to kind of continue to obsess about swimming and becoming a mermaid, and that's basically what goes on in this book. So that sounds like a pretty random topic, but it really works. There's a lot of exploration of kind of like coming of age and like body dysmorphia, especially in like high school women's sports, and it gets quite dramatic and quite strange and speculative. There is a little bit of body horror in this as well, so please know that before you pick this one up. Obviously it's all about swimming, so that makes it great for summer in my opinion. I was a swimmer when I was in high school, so I felt like I could relate to this book in ways, but I think that even if you are not into swimming or it's not something that interests you, I think that you could still find something to enjoy in this book if you enjoy weird girl lit. One of my favorite books that I read last summer is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, and this is honestly just the most perfect book I can think of for reading in the summertime. I mean, just look at the cover. We've got an octopus front and center, and it's really giving like a sunshiny ocean kind of vibe. So this takes place in Washington, and we're following this older woman named Tova. Her and all of her friends are retired. Her husband has passed away, so she's a widow, and she actually volunteers at her local aquarium, and that's kind of like what is keeping her going in life. She loves like having that time spent with the community and putting time into something that she loves and enjoys, and she forms kind of a special relationship with the octopus that lives at this aquarium. And then there's different stuff going on with her life as well. So all of her friends are starting to make different changes in their life, like moving away, going to retirement homes, moving with their children, and they're encouraging Tova to give up her volunteer position. They feel like she's possibly too old to be doing this, and they worry about her cleaning up the aquarium all by herself. But Tova really wants to cling to this position because, again, it's what makes her happy. It's like her passion in life. And so we're kind of just like following her relationship with this octopus, her coming to terms with her age and changing life expectations and like what her friends and family are doing. So it's just like kind of reminds me of like a coming of age book, but for like a senior. It's very interesting. It's like about a different chapter of life that we often don't read about, and it's very ocean themed. We're on the beach, at the aquarium, and it's very touching and heartfelt. This book was really impactful for me, and it's definitely one that I would read again and recommend to many a person, since it is kind of just like a touching literary fiction. My next recommendation is Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And in Carrie, Soto is Back, we are following Carrie Soto, who is a fictional tennis player. She's a little old in terms of the sport of tennis, playing at a professional level, and she has been retired for some years, and she actually holds a record for, I believe, the most Grand Slam titles ever won by a woman. And there is like this new up-and-coming younger tennis player who is getting closer and closer to beating Carrie's record. And tennis is definitely Carrie's biggest passion. It's something that even in retirement she hasn't let go of. Like, her whole personality and self-worth kind of revolves around her being this tennis champion. So as soon as she feels like her title might be threatened, she decides that she wants to come out of retirement and begin playing tennis at a professional level again, even though she is quite old for playing this sport at a professional level. So she begins extremely intensive training with her father, who is her tennis coach, and she just prepares herself to re-enter the sport and starts entering herself in these different Grand Slam competitions and trying to beat this younger girl. It's kind of like a character study of Carrie, so we're really looking at how she deals with this threat to, like I said, what she considers to be her self-worth in tennis, and just how she kind of has to change her worldview and change and accept that that things in her life might change. And I know this might not sound like the most interesting premise, especially if you're not into tennis, but if you've read a book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, if you like her books, you know that she will make you care about any character that she writes about. So honestly, I was so hooked into this book when I read it. Like, I was reading these tennis matches and it was like intense. It was better than any sport I could ever watch on TV. I was like so hooked into it, and I really cared about Carrie, and I really cared about the actual tennis matches themselves. So I'd highly recommend it. Another horror book that I think is perfect for summer is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. And this is actually a mermaid horror book, so of course that makes it perfect for summer. It has a really unique take on mermaids and a very unique angle. It's like an extremely scientific leaning horror book. So in that book, we are following basically this girl who's like this young scientist who is interested in this topic, and there is some like an entertainment channel. It's like almost kind of like the History Channel or something like that does like mockumentaries, and they had previously done one about mermaids and did like this huge expedition where they sent out like a ship to basically film this mockumentary about mermaids. And our main character, Victoria, her sister, was on this ship, and everyone that was on this expedition was mysteriously killed and is missing. And the production company never quite explained what happened. Bits and pieces of film were released online that basically showed clips of what could be mermaids, and people heavily debate whether they are real or fake clips. And in the present, the same production company decides that they are going to do a follow-up expedition, and this time they're going to be prepared. They are going to be more of a scientific expedition this time. They're going to bring on all these scientists. They bring in like wild game hunters. They bring in all these different characters and types of experts basically to do a redo of this mission. And Victoria, of course, wants to be involved because her sister was killed on the former mission and she wants to know what is going on. So this huge research vessel goes out into the Mariana Trench, and from there we get some mermaid action happening. And it's, like I said, it's very scientific. It's focused on like what could mermaids be like if they actually existed and if they were kind of these horrifying creatures. I think it's a phenomenal book. It just really gripped me. I personally really like the scientific aspect, so I think if you like kind of a science fiction horror vibe, you would also like that one for sure. Now, I'm not a super big thriller reader, but I think that during the summertime, sometimes a thriller can really hit. Like if you are having like a beach or poolside thriller read, sometimes that's just perfect. And one that I read over a summer and thought it was a perfect summer read was The Only Survivors by Miranda. So this is a story about kind of this group of friends who knew each other since high school. And when they were in high school, they were in this really tragic accident where they were on this bus, this school bus, and that basically got into a really bad crash during a storm and ended up in this kind of river ravine, and many of their classmates died. And this kind of group that is still in touch are the only ones that actually survived this trip. They have this kind of ritual of meeting up every year and just kind of touching base with each other. Obviously they have kind of trauma bonded. They've gone through something that a lot of other people don't understand, so they like to keep in touch and check in on each other. But when we start up this book, one of the survivors has actually just died, and so it's making things a little bit more heated, and they are coming together again to meet, and they are meeting at a vacation rental house in the Outer Banks. So again, that's like a perfect summer vibe. It's the Outer Banks, but it's like actually really stormy during the time that they're meeting up. So very thriller, cozy, scary vibes all at the same time. And yeah, some more of them start to go missing. So it is kind of like a locked door kind of mystery, like who is doing this, what's happening to them, why is this happening to them. And honestly, I think I only gave this like a 3-star. Like it was just a fun time. It wasn't anything that I was obsessed with, but I really think it's the perfect beach or poolside read. So clearly I have a lot of summer horror recommendations. Another one is This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. Again, this is one that I wasn't like obsessed with, but I did give this 3 stars. I definitely enjoyed it, so it's worth looking into because this has a very, very unique plot. So in This Wretched Valley, we're following kind of this group of 4 acquaintances. One of them is a geologist, and they discover a like new cliff face in Kentucky that no one has ever really like recorded before. And their friend is actually a climber, and she really wants to make a name for herself. She's like an up-and-coming person in like professional climbing, so she wants to be the first one to scale this cliff face because obviously she would gain some notoriety for this, and she'd be able to name different climbs and things like that. So them plus a research assistant and one of their partners end up going on this expedition to take some scientific data about this cliffside that's like kind of in the wilderness, and also to climb it and take some like make some different routes and provide that information online. And things go pretty weird from there. So right away, like we're getting really weird vibes. Like this cliff does not show up on maps. Like it doesn't show up on like GPS, I don't think, but like they can see it with their eyes. So they don't, it doesn't make sense. Like it obviously they can see it, but it doesn't seem to exist in like previous maps and things. So very strange. And then the girl who is the climber is becoming like increasingly obsessed with the mountain and can't seem to stay away from it, despite some like difficulty with the climbing and things seeming quite dangerous. And everyone's like getting irritated, everyone's at each other's throats, and then they also start to have some paranormal encounters. So that is actually the part of it that I wasn't a huge fan of, was the fact that it went paranormal, because it was quite different than what I was expecting. So I would suggest knowing that going into it. I think that if I knew that before reading it, I would have had a better time. So just expect that. But I think that it's an extremely unique plot, and it's definitely a good one for summer where they're outside, you know, they're climbing, doing these outdoor sports, and then we get some scary aspects as well. Another summer horror recommendation is Dead 11 by Juliano. And this is quite an interesting one. It's basically about this island where all of the inhabitants on this island are pretending that it's still the 1990s, even though, you know, it's modern day, like 2020s. And it's very bizarre. Basically, this woman who lives on the mainland, her son dies, and she's very distraught over this, obviously. But she finds something in his room that is like, I think it's like the name of this island. She finds it in his room, and she is just like grasping at straws at this point because she is, you know, of course, stricken with grief at the death of her son. So she wants to know if this has something to do with her son. So she ends up traveling to this island. It's very remote. People don't usually go to visit it. And when she gets there, she realizes that people act really strangely there. People don't use technology. People are listening to music from the 90s. People are still watching TV from the 90s. Everyone's like watching the O.J. Simpson trial on TV all the time. Like very strange vibes. And she actually kind of ends up like assimilating into their society and staying there for a while. And we kind of slowly start to figure out why they are pretending that it's the 90s. And let me tell you, it's pretty bizarre. It's like a very strange reason. And the book in general is pretty bizarre, but I think that it's a really fun one. And it's good for summer because it's, you know, summer island vibes. So overall, Dead 11 just kind of reminded me of like an old book I'd read by R.L. Stine, and I really loved the nostalgia of that. It was great. So one that probably a lot of you have heard of before that I do think is a good read for summer is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides, I think is the author's name. So this is also a movie, and the movie was directed by, I believe, Sofia Coppola. When I was in high school, I was obsessed with the movie of The Virgin Suicides, and just like I think last year, the year before, I ended up reading the book. And let me tell you right away, I don't think the book is as good as the movies, but I did still enjoy it. But I think the movie is like really where it's at. But if you're not sure what this is about, if you haven't heard of The Virgin Suicides, it's a pretty strange story. So basically we are following this group of sisters who live like in this American suburban neighborhood. They have kind of a religious controlling family, but other than that, they're just like normal high school girls of varying ages. But we're actually like the story's not really taking place from the eyes of these girls. It's actually more so told through the eyes of the neighborhood boys. So boys that live in their neighborhood or go to their school and are observing them. And over the course of a year, each sister in this family actually commits suicide over the course of like a whole year. So very spread apart. And it's very unclear as to why this is happening. So the boys like don't understand this. They don't see any reason why it's happening. It's very mysterious. It honestly just makes them want to gawk at these sisters more and observe them more. And yeah, so it's a very strange book, very strange movie. It could be taken in a lot of different ways. I think to me, it's really just like about how women are perceived and like constantly ridiculed and kind of looked at through different lenses by men, even into their death. But it does very much have a summer vibe because we're in this like kind of suburban setting in the neighborhood. There's a lot of description of like hazy, warm summer days, like the curtains fluttering, the grass lawn, the boys like mowing neighbors' lawns, the girls like sitting on the roof or sneaking out or different things like that, just like normal teenager stuff, but with this very, very melancholic lens. So it's definitely, this kind of like slow melancholy story, but it does have a summer vibe. So it's kind of like sad girl summer, I would say. And then last but not least, my favorite summer fantasy recommendation would be The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. And this is actually going to be a series. I don't think the next book has come out. I think the second book is coming out this year. But so far we just have one, and we're following Amina Al-Sirafi, who is a pirate. She was once a very notorious pirate with her own crew, and she had a lot of control over kind of the ocean territories in her area. She has since then retired and has a child that she cares for deeply and doesn't want to endanger. However, she's kind of coerced into taking like one last job to help someone find their child who was kidnapped, and she decides to take this on. Again, she's like kind of coerced slightly into it, and she ends up kind of digging up her old crew and restarting her adventures on the sea for this one final task. And it's such a fun vibe, like the pirate of it all, the like kind of Caribbean ocean vibes. There's a lot of like drama and different kinds of like magic and creatures, and just like it's this whole adventure, and it's really phenomenal. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. I think it's such a fun time. It's such a good fantasy, especially if you are a fan of Pirates of the Caribbean. It is very much in that same vein, but with a female main character, which we love to see. I did love Amina as a character. Like, it's so refreshing to see a female main character in fantasy who's a little bit older, who has a child. It was just great representation of kind of a different, not just your usual 18-year-old female main character. We had something a little different, which is refreshing. Okay, so those are the books that I would recommend checking out this summer if you are in need of some summer reading plans. Thank you all so much for watching, and I would love to hear what books are on your summer TBR, so please let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!